Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And welcome to this nonpartisan, I was said to say that first, event that we have at a wonderful church that has opened their doors. Let's just give them a round of applause for Christ's mission. And I am going to ask you to stand because I do want to acknowledge that when we come into this great city called Milwaukee and the places that we live throughout, even Wisconsin, we want to show some gratitude. Am I right?
Yes.
And we stand to give gratitude and acknowledge this land and the many ancestors that have gone before us, that have tilled the land. And so I just want to acknowledge that and to say that we commit ourselves to listening to the land. And that's a big deal right now. To listen to the land and to each other and to the wisdom that lives within each of us and into the ancestors that have poured into us. I want to say that the land is not silent. Why? Because we are not silent. And so the land speaks just as the people speak. And that is why we are here tonight, is to also hear the people. We commit ourselves to tending this land and sustaining this land and practicing things that will even help to mend the land. We commit ourselves to being more than what we were before. And that is, if you look at our history, and that is all of us, because we are together in this community and in Milwaukee, that we may then move forward together in gratitude and humility to those that have gone before us, to those who find themselves coming to this land that are guests and are foreign to us, but also those of us that we can call ourselves brothers and sisters, right?
Correct.
Because we live together and we do things that would help till the land. And we come asking that we would move forward so that we can learn together. And that is a big opportunity for all of us, ever learning, ever growing. And so we ask that you move forward with us as the organizations and groups that have provided and hosting this event tonight. I'm sure they will be acknowledged, but Walnut Way and others that have committed themselves to doing this work as a community to show all of us that we belong. You may be seated. Let's give some praise for that too. If you don't know me, you will get to know me. And I'm Pastor Teresa Thomas Boyd, working with Walnut Way as a faith community organizer and consultant. And I tell people I'm pretty much the same everywhere I go. So that means I want a hallelujah or a clap or something. Make some noise, okay? Thank you, Dynasty. But we are here tonight, and I do have to make this little phone work for me as well. But we are here tonight for an exciting time. I've had the privilege of going around the city of Milwaukee and introducing who you will meet tonight. But I say it's a privilege because oftentimes, even in our everyday life, we don't take the time to recognize who is in our world, who walks in, who walks out, who makes a difference. She says, I got 1 minute, so that means I got to introduce you, Judge. Okay, so let me see if I can read this about Judge Ashley. He was appointed by the Wisconsin Supreme Court as chief judge for the First Judicial District, Milwaukee County, on April 15, 2023. Judge Ashley was elected to Milwaukee County Circuit Court in 1999. He has served in the General Misdemeanor Court, Domestic Violence Court, Juvenile Dependency and Delinquency Court, Homicide, Sexual Assault Court, Felony Drug Court, Family Court, Drug Treatment Court, and Veterans Treatment Court. Let's give him a round of applause. That's a lot of work. I just read one of them and thought, woo-wee, that's a lot of work. He is the chair of the Milwaukee County Community Justice Council. Now, I know that I am being timed, and I usually take up more time than I am given. So I am very honored to introduce to you for this evening, Judge Ashley.
Well, thank you, Pastor Teresa. I am just pleased with the opportunity to be here, folks. Let me set my stuff down. I don't want to mess up your mic. All right. For you to come here for this presentation means a lot. Voting, civic responsibility is huge. My dear friend, Judge Chris Taylor, I'm going to introduce her in a minute. Great things about her and what she's going to be able to provide to Milwaukee community, but I'll do my bit first. And I think from my standpoint, who the heck, so you heard a little bit about me. Let me give you a little bit more of a grassroots Carl Ashley. I was born and raised here in Milwaukee. Grew up on 2610 North 10th Street, 53206. You know, came from a family of 8 kids. Father worked at A.O. Smith. You know, if you go back, some of y'all know what I'm talking about. That's what the jobs were. When he got out of the military, that's where he worked. And we never had a lot. I know with my brothers, 5 boys, 3 girls, 4 boys back to back. And I'd always say to my siblings, be careful with those clothes because I got to wear them. That's just the way life was. But one of the things that my parents were very focused on was education. And so I didn't understand the magnitude of what that was and how important that would be for our family to be so focused on education. But you see, not everybody gets that. And I understand that. A lot of our young folks don't get an opportunity to know that education means something and have it focused on as they're growing up. And ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, we have so many children, our youth, who have the potential to do wonderful things. But they never get the opportunity to actualize that because they don't get the proper environment and the proper support. So we worry about what's happening with our kids in the community and some of the things we see. There's a lot of trauma going on in our community. And so our young people are experiencing significant unmet trauma. And yet we expect them to just be great. And I want to tell you, the resilience is such that even those who don't have those opportunities do well. And you look around, and my wife works in education. And you know, you hear the word alternative schools. And my wife says, don't you use that word. It's opportunity schools. It's an opportunity for those kids who didn't have that upbringing to get a chance to get on track. And I think, look, they got a new facility out at Children's Court, Cersei, which is a good place. Instead of going way out almost 4 hours away, they're closer to their families. And that facility is not just about brick and mortar. It's about trying to give these young kids opportunities to change their trajectory. Yes. So that's really good. But I also said at the press conference that we need to get upstream. We need to do more to support better outcomes earlier for these young folks, giving them a better chance to be successful. I really wasn't supposed to be talking about all that. So what I was supposed to be talking about was the importance of voting.
Yes.
And I have actually a written thing on that. And I guess I'll get, because I do want to leave here with all of you understanding the importance of 2 things: voting and jury service. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about jury service. The importance of voting and civic engagement cannot be overstated. The power of the ballot is not merely a right, but a vital tool in our struggle for equality. Historic disenfranchisement has taught us that voices must be amplified and our votes must count. The fight for fair access to the polls continues, and every single one of us has a role to play. We must engage our communities, like this event, educate ourselves and others about the issues at stake, like this Supreme Court race, and mobilize to ensure that if you can vote, that you exercise that crucial right. I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about jury service. By the way, who's got the clock on me?
I do.
Okay, there you go. Let me know when I know you will. Okay. Jury service is a fundamental right and responsibility that bears profound significance within our justice system. Participating in jury service is not just a civic obligation, it is a crucial opportunity to influence the legal narrative and ensure that our justice system is truly representative of our diverse community. Historically and presently, marginalized communities have faced significant barriers with reputation within juries. Many have been excluded by the process, leading to systemic inequalities and perpetuates injustices. This has far-reaching implications, as jurors play a pivotal role in safeguarding the rights and responsibilities and ensuring that justice is served. I'm gonna go away from my notes and just talk to you, Blaine. This is what I tell you. So I'm in the barber shop, and the barber shop is not what it used to be. In the old days, before COVID, we'd all be in the barber shop, and I'd go get my hair cut, but it was more important for me just to be there to talk and hear and communicate. Great opportunity. And so when I was a lawyer and then a judge, I would talk to the brothers. I said, "Are you going to do jury service?" And they would say, "No. Attorney asked you, or then judge asked you." "I'm not going down there." "No, I'm not going down to the courthouse." And I'm like, "Do you understand what it's like to be getting ready for your jury trial, and you're either the defendant or a respondent in a case or a plaintiff in a case, and it's the jury trial, and then the potential jurors, 35 of them, walk in the room, and you don't see anybody that looks like you." And many times, especially when I was years ago as a lawyer, my client would grab my coat and say, "Wait, judge." Well, he didn't say judge, lawyer, attorney asked you, "Where's all the people of color on the panel? Where are they?" And I would say, "Well, they're not here." "Well, then I want another day." And I said, "Well, it don't work like that." So it is extraordinarily important that people understand that when they get that jury summons, that they take it as a serious obligation. And people will get it and they'll say, "How do I get out of it?" People will call you up and say, "Oh, I got a jury summons. How do I get out of it?" Your answer should be, run to the courthouse. They need you. And I'm not meaning to say that just because you're a certain color or ethnicity, that you're going to vote a certain way. But when they're deliberating in that room, they need to get a better perspective on life. All right? And sometimes it's a pretty narrow perspective. And so I'm not saying that because you're a person of color that's going to vote for you on the jury panel and give you an acquittal or give you that judgment. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that it's better for all of us to feel like there's inclusion so that people feel like the justice system actually works. And so I push that out to you because the next time you're going to hear it, someone's going to say, I got a jury summons and I want to get out of it. I want you to give them the right answer. But that's something we need to do. And voting, let's go back to that. I know during a number of voting cycles, I literally talked to people who said, "I'm not voting." And not only did they not vote, but the kids who were 18 and older and could vote also didn't vote because their parents said, "The system's rigged, don't vote." Made my head spin off my back. Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is the way for us to really affect change. Politicians realize that if you don't vote, they aren't responsible to you. They don't think about what you want because, by the way, the percentage of y'all who vote, although I will tell you in that last election, y'all did good. Did good. So you need to keep pushing that idea that voting really matters. When I have meetings with legislators and talk to them, I know their thoughts about what do my constituents want? Okay, that's what they should be saying. But if you don't vote, you're not one of those constituents that they really are going to think about. which means that limits your ability to have effective change on what happens in our society. So when you talk about voting, make sure you talk to people. And I have to tell you, educated people. I'm not talking about uneducated people. I'm talking about people who've been in school, educated, are telling their kids, teaching their kids not to vote. I talked to the mother of those kids. She votes, but the kids won't. It's that strong an influence, and it can work both ways, folks. As far as encouraging people to vote, that's the same thing. It's a taught thing. My parents voted, and we vote. I mean, I got nervous. I'm running, Lord, can I get to the polls? And I sometimes early vote because I just don't want to miss that opportunity. It's that valuable. And then someone will say, well, my one vote is make a difference. But what's my one vote? Time? Oh, you giving me time? Okay. She stopped it. Yeah, that's her job. And thank you. He was like, you paying attention? Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you someone who has dedicated her life to justice, fairness, and service, Judge Chris Taylor. Chris currently serves on the Wisconsin Court of Appeals, where she works every day to make sure every person who comes before the court is treated with dignity, fairness, and respect. Before serving as a judge, she was a state legislator and an attorney fighting to protect people's rights and strengthen our community. Chris is a mom, public servant, and a person of deep compassion that believes everyone deserves a voice. Please join me in welcoming Judge.
Well, thank you so much, Judge Ashley. What an incredible leader for the community, isn't he? Talk about a life that's really committed to public service. And I so appreciate, where is Pastor Teresa? Thank you, Pastor Teresa, and thank you, Walnut Way and Ammonia, for organizing this today. I am Chris Taylor. I am so honored to be here. How many of you know we have an election coming up? Anybody? All right. What's the date? April 7th. You guys get my highest 5 gold stars. Yes, there is an election coming up. I get excited about elections. I love elections because it's our right, it's our ability to raise our voices. The government is about us. It's about you all. And this is your chance. So I always get very excited. And I'm really excited on April 7th because I'm on the ballot. And that's a very odd thing, to see your name on a ballot. It's still strange. I don't know if it's strange for you when you go in and you're like, oh, I'm voting for myself on this ballot. But anyway, I'm on the ballot because I'm running for the state Supreme Court. And I'm running for the state Supreme Court because there's 3 things that have driven my entire life since I was a little kid. The first is I love people. I have a lot of compassion for people. I like being around people. I like talking to people. I like connecting with people. The second thing that has really driven my life is I am passionate about justice. And this started from the time I was a little kid. I got so upset when I would see another child being treated unfairly or someone who was being bullied. It bugged me. It bothered me. And I knew I wanted to be an advocate for that person who wasn't being treated fairly. And the third thing that has really characterized my 30-year legal career is I love the law because there's potential in the law. The words, when they're brought to life by attorneys and judges, make our communities better, remedy injustices, and lift people up and give them opportunities. And I learned this as a child, listening to my own family story. My grandmother, who I was very close with, was a single mom to my mom for most of my mother's life. And my grandmother really struggled to make ends meet until she got a union job. And that union job saved my grandma. And really sorry about that. And really my mother as well. Oops, sorry. I was getting so excited there. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Because that job enabled my grandma to support my mom and my mom's two brothers. And my grandmother was able to help my mom go to college. My mom was a teacher. She taught 5th grade. And I learned that the laws that lift people up and let working people have a voice and that fairly compensate working people who are making that pie every day and who deserve a slice of that pie that they're making, not just those little tiny crumbs left over. That allows people to thrive, not just survive. And I want people to thrive. So I decided I was going to become a lawyer. There are no lawyers in my family. My family didn't even like lawyers. I don't think they trusted lawyers. But I thought that I could make people's lives better through the law. And so 30 years ago, I graduated from law school. And since that time, I have really centered my career on trying to do what I can to help people. I started right here in Milwaukee, my legal career at a very small law firm where I represented just your average person who was struggling with employment or family law. And then I became, after several years of practicing law, I practiced law for about 7 years, I became the law and policy director for Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. And I worked to make sure that women and families had access to reproductive health care and other life-saving health care, cervical cancer screens, breast exams. And most of the people that were served by Planned Parenthood were low-income people. They had no access to health care. And so I did that for about 8 years. In 2011, I did a U-turn. I ran for the state legislature. Why the heck did I do that? I'd never run for anything before in my life. I was worried. That's why I ran. I was worried about my kids. I had 2 little kids at the time, and we saw a very large cut to education in that 2011 budget. And just like you were saying, Judge Ashley, education for my family was key. For my mother was key. So I decided to run for the legislature. I worked on issues that impact us still, access to affordable health care, being able to drink our water that's coming out of our tap in so many parts of the state that I visited for the last 10 months. People can't drink their water. It's contaminated. And then, of course, making sure that we strengthen our communities and invest in our communities. And in 2020, I realized I wanted to get back to the courtroom, and I thought I could do more good for people being a judge. And so I became a Dane County Circuit Court judge. I was appointed by Governor Evers, and I worked every day to make sure that every person coming into that courtroom was heard, was respected, that their constitutional rights were protected, whether they be a victim of a crime or the accused. And I made sure that I was applying the law in the fairest, most impartial way that I could. And I loved it. I had found my home in the judiciary. In 2023, I was elected by Wisconsinites in 24 counties to the Court of Appeals. And that's where I serve now. So the circuit court is also sometimes called the trial court. If you all watch any TV shows, Law and Order, that show a courtroom scene, that happens in that circuit court. That's where the trials happen. In the appellate courts, we review what happens in those circuit courts. People have the right to appeal. And that's what I do. I hear those appeals. And then the state Supreme Court, they decide what cases they take on appeal. If a case is of statewide importance, or there's some really important issue, maybe a voting issue that has statewide impact. So why am I running now for the state Supreme Court? I don't think in my lifetime it has ever been more important to have a strong state Supreme Court to protect our rights, to protect our democracy, our elections, to hold the other two branches of government accountable, including the federal government, when they are reaching into our state inappropriately. We have got to have a strong court, and that's why I'm running. I'm running to be a justice for you, not the most powerful and not prioritizing the billionaires and the special interests. I want to be a justice for the people, and that's why I'm running. So when I talk about democracy, what does the court do to protect our democracy? And I'm going to give you a couple examples. You all might remember a couple of years ago, our state Supreme Court struck down some legislative maps that determine where your assembly representative is, where your senator is, and the state Supreme Court determined that those maps were unconstitutional. Now, those maps were called the most gerrymandered maps in the whole nation. What that meant is the legislature designed those maps so that some people's vote really counted and other people's vote was diluted in these maps. So they were very political maps. But guess what the maps didn't do? They didn't comply with our state constitution, because the territory in the maps was not touching each other. The territory was little blobs of land, it was little snakes going like this, it was lightning bolts, but it was not contiguous. That means touching. So they were struck down. And guess what happened? There were more competitive, fair maps passed, because our state Supreme Court said to the legislature, you acted unconstitutionally in passing those maps. Another example is, do you all remember that there were attempts to overturn our 2020 election, the presidential election? There are many cases brought. Our state Supreme Court rejected those attempts. There was one case that wanted to throw out 3 million votes. So our state Supreme Court said, no, there's nothing wrong with our elections. These are not meritorious, these cases. But it was only by one vote. We still see attacks on elections, on the right to vote, on our right to speak, on a right to walk down the street and not be stopped, not be subjected to unreasonable and unlawful government intrusion. You saw what happened in Minnesota. So it is so important that we have strong courts, not just to protect our democracy, to protect our rights, because democracy requires participation. We cannot be bystanders and sit on the sideline and watch it go by. And one way you do it, one way you participate is voting. That's where we get to decide. We get to decide. So that is why I'm running to be your state Supreme Court justice. I'm running against an individual who does not share those values, and who I do not believe is going to protect our elections or our democracy or our rights. So this is incredibly important, you all. This is something we can do together. When you turn on the television and you feel overwhelmed, or you don't know what to do, join this campaign for justice and turn out to vote on April 7th. Together we can elect a justice for the people. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And you all take a yard sign. If you want a yard sign, grab it.
I see this real
Oh,
quick?
sure.
Just want to give another shout out, thank you to the WEBB and Walnut Way and the Dominican Center and everyone that organized and all of you for coming out. Again, democracy dies when people don't participate. Participating is important, and homework for everyone else. When we get to doing more things, get the people that you know in these rooms too. Thank you again. Got some questions for you. What do you believe is the proper role of the Wisconsin Supreme Court when balancing the intention of the law with the real world impact of it?
Yes, so that is a really good question. And what I learned when I was in the legislature and when I saw every single day, because I was dealing with my constituents, is the impact of the law on people's lives. And that's something I never forget as a judge, that what I decide is impacting someone's life in a real profound way. That's why I work so hard to get it right. That's why I do my research on what is the law, what are the issues before me, and then in every case, I try to apply that law in the fairest, most impartial way I can, with always an eye towards justice, because that is what I'm supposed to do as a judge. So that is how I approach.
Thank you.
Many Wisconsinites feel decisions that affect their lives, such as environmental or energy costs, environmental protections, and voting access, are made far away from the communities that are impacted. How, as a Supreme Court judge, do you stay accountable to those people that maybe don't get to be close to the democratic process?
Yeah, that is such a good question too. I've been thinking a lot about this because one thing that I love as a Court of Appeals judge, as I told you all, I was elected by voters in 24 counties. And so one thing that we do to be connected with those people who elected us so they can see what we do, is we actually go out to those counties and we have we meet with the attorneys and we meet with the public and we meet with the judges and we do presentations on what we do in the Court of Appeals. What I would really like to see, and what gets me very excited, is taking the state Supreme Court out to the people. And they've started to do that, which I'm really excited about. So what that means is every time the state Supreme Court takes a case, they have an oral argument on the case where the attorneys come and you really can hear about the case. They've started, once again, going to different communities to have those oral arguments. And I think that's so important. That's how we make sure people can see us. Because so often you don't see the judge. You might in the circuit court, at the appellate level, you don't see us so much. And so that's one thing that I would very enthusiastically embrace and try to push forward to do that even more.
Great answers. This is a question from Vanna Ford from MKE BizTech. How can our state's legal and economic policies ensure that the expansion of AI data centers specifically benefits locals' communities through resource efficiency rather than placing a burden on residents, utilities bills, and the environment?
This is also a lot of questions that I get as I go out, is these AI data centers. And I don't make policy, so I'm not out making the laws. But when people bring cases to me, I can tell you that, I would look very carefully at the impact on the environmental health and human health of these facilities. Really depends on what the case is. But those are big concerns that I'm hearing about from communities. And, there's one case I wanted to tell you all about that the state Supreme Court just decided that I thought was a really good case. They just decided last term, at the end of last term, that the corporate polluters who are polluting and dumping PFAS, which are these toxic forever chemicals in our water and in our land, are going to be held accountable by the state. Thank goodness. And I gotta tell you, my opponent joined the decision that said they would be accountable, but that was reversed by our state Supreme Court. So our DNR is going to be able to make sure those PFAS chemicals, or these PFAS toxic chemicals, can be cleaned up by the people dumping them and contaminating our environment. And that's the court, again, the court working.
Thank you. A couple more. What steps, and you talked about this a little bit, what steps can the Wisconsin Supreme Court take to improve transparency and public understanding, especially when rulings so often affect the perception of public issues?
That is another really good question, one I've thought about. So I would say we need to go out to the public more. But I also think that there's some room to do educational videos of what the court is doing for the public. Maybe explaining what the decision was, you know, in a case that can go digitally, instead of having people or expecting people to read some really long decisions. So I'm really interested in synthesizing more about what we are doing in the courts and making it more digestible for people to help them understand what we do.
Bridging those gaps. Okay, another question from Vanna Ford, similarly stated, as Wisconsin considers new regulations for AI infrastructure, how can our judicial system provide a clear framework that balances economic growth with the necessity and of technical certifications for data center efficiency?
So again, we don't make the regulations. We interpret them, however. And so if there was a case that came in front of me on these data centers, depending on what the issue is, I think there probably will be a lot of regulatory issues around these data centers. So I don't want to say too much about that. But we have a framework that we go through and we figure out, was this a rule? Was it appropriately passed? So we are looking at a lot of different issues, and we do scrutinize when these cases come, whether the laws are being appropriately followed.
And last question, similar again, how does the court ensure ordinary citizens have equal standing and protections as the same bigger companies or industries that have so many more resources so often?
Well, that's what really inspires me to run, because I think people are tired of seeing the benefits that the most powerful and the most privileged get. I believe that it's the people of the state that should be at the center of their government and should be the priority of the courts. And that's why I'm running, is to make sure that the people's backs are going to be protected. And I will never forget about the people being impacted by what I do. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the final question. Thank you so much for your time. Is anyone closing? Closer?
You're closing.
I'm closing. Thank you again for everyone that showed up. Thank you to the judges that just spoke just now. Again, we all need to participate. Look to your leaders in your communities. Look to your people running. It is so easy to be a politician without integrity right now, so we need to make sure we support those that do have it.
Tell them about June.
Oh, on June 27th, we'll be having a gubernatorial forum. Please show up to that. Keep up with the web. We'll make sure we keep you updated on other stuff we're doing. Yeah, everyone have a good night. Drive safe. Thank you again.
Thank you.